in the end of 24, it will be equivalent to the road infrastructure of USA.
We have now entered the growth phase. And I believe that the growth rate in India is going to be exponential.
Two narratives of Indian story which need to be brought center stage.
Every week, the India story will bring the most incisive analysis, the most authoritative voices.
India will be a significant pole in the universe of AI going forward.
India is walking tall, India's stature is different, India's voice is being heard.
And the biggest newsmakers.
This is just a start. Tokyo, we won one bronze. Paris, we won a rocket.
Good to see that, women cricket is getting more excited and everybody is looking after that.
And these stories need to be told, and they are guided by the compass of their conscience.
From India, for the world, the India story. The show for the global citizen.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is another edition of World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the global curve. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Hem Kaur Soroya. In the latest in the Israel-Hamas war, the scheduled truce and hostage release deal for Thursday, it's now been shifted to Friday as Israel continues to pound Gaza, a blow to the families who've been eagerly waiting for their loved ones to come back home. On-ground Gazans to remain anxious over the deal going through. We'll get you all the details of the truce on the show today.
And as we track all the developments on that front, in other news from across the globe, the explosion at the Rainbow Bridge border crossing between United States and Canada has sent shockwaves. Preliminary reports indicate that the explosion is not a terror attack, but the FBI is investigating the matter further. We will get you all the details right here on World DNA, but for now, let's get you started with the headlines.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's national security advisor says planned hostage for prisoners swap with Hamas delayed until Friday.
Israeli army says no ceasefire till hostage swap begins. IDF releases footage showing capture of North Gaza Hamas brigade headquarters and purported tunnel shafts under Al-Shifa hospital.
Uttarakhand tunnel rescue operations hit a snag after the NDRF personnel find steel rods in the debris. Tunneling work to resume after cutting rods, as per the project's director.
Vehicle explodes at US-Canada checkpoint on Niagara Falls. Rainbow Bridge, reportedly killing 2 people. US Border Protection Agency video footage shows cars speeding and taking off into the air prior to explosion.
Chinese hospitals overwhelmed with sick children as mystery pneumonia outbreak reportedly escalates in cities across the country, including capital Beijing.
India face Australia in the first of 5 T20Is in Visakhapatnam today, just 4 days after a 6-wicket defeat at the ICC World Cup final against the same opponents.
Now, the start of a short-term ceasefire between Israel and Hamas militants has been delayed until Friday.
Well, this is according to a top Israeli official. The first truce in a near 7-week-long war reached after mediation by Qatar was hailed around the world as a sign of progress that could ease the suffering of civilians in Gaza and bring more Israeli captives back home.
But according to Israel's National Security Council director, the contacts on the release of hostages are advancing and continuing constantly. He further added that the start of the release will take place according to the original agreement between the sides, which will quote-unquote not be before Friday.
Now, Israel's National Security Council director's statement comes hours after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a press conference late on Wednesday. However, Netanyahu did not make a mention of a potential delay in implementation of the agreement during the press conference.
According to reports, the release of hostages along with a 4-day ceasefire was originally set to begin on Thursday morning. The breakthrough deal was agreed between Israel and Hamas to let aid into Gaza and facilitate the release of at least 50 hostages held by Hamas militants in exchange for at least 150 Palestinians jailed in Israel.
But according to the spokesperson for Israel's National Security Council, they have stressed that the delay does not indicate the deal is in peril.
Although various Gazans do not feel the same way about the deal, they have expressed mistrust in the planned truce between Israel and Hamas militants.
هدنة كذابة هذه كلها بيعملوها بعدين بكذب الشعب بخلوه يطلع واللي بقصف واللي بضرب واللي بخبط بتزبطش هيك مش حياة هذه احنا ما تعودنا على هيك أولادنا صار يجروا من غير وعي حرام عليهم حرام على اللي بصير الشيك في الشعب حرام
هدنة فاشلة هدنة كذابة قالوا لنا هدنة وهينا طلعوا الأولاد امبارح لعبوا في الشارع هانك فوتبول وكورة وانبسطوا صبحوا الصبح في شو الصبح في الليل الساعة 10 لقينا القصف وين الهدنة؟ أنا بدي إياه هدنة وقف إطلاق نار يا إما خلاص بديش هدنة كده 100.
And now, with the delay in the agreement between Israel and Hamas militants, Israel's chief military spokesperson has said that the war in Gaza will continue until the ceasefire brokered between the two sides will start.
אנחנו קיימנו היום שיח של הרמטכ"ל עם כל מפקדי החטיבות. אני גם לא יודע מתי תיכנס הפסקת אש. אנחנו נהיה ערוכים לעשות כל מה שצריך כרגע. אנחנו מתמקדים במלחמה. מה שעשינו היום זה לחשוף מנהרות של חמאס ולהשמיד אותם. זה גם מה שאנחנו הולכים לעשות בשעות הקרובות ונמשיך לעשות עד שיגיע שלב שצריך לעצור בו.
Now, for more on this, we have with us Colonel Rich Outzen, joining us live from Washington, D.C. He's a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, the Jamestown Foundation, and around Middle East expert. So, welcome to World DNA.
Good to be with you.
Always a pleasure to have you, sir. Now, sir, from Thursday, the deal has now been moved to Friday. That's when the swap is expected to happen. There's no certainty on that either. Reports suggest there was a 24-hour delay as the deal was not signed. There are other issues to be ironed out as well. What's more in these negotiations, as per you?
Well, I think one of the problems is that it's not clear Hamas has total control over all the factions that have taken hostages. There have been reports that with the October 7th attacks, Hamas lost control of some of the fighters, and in fact, some criminal elements and other terroristic groups like Palestinian Islamic Jihad participated in the attacks and in taking the hostages. So it's not entirely clear that they have total control of the groups who hold all of the hostages. It's also not clear, given the problems of communication among Hamas elements due to the Israeli attacks on the tunnels and on communications in Gaza Strip, that they can actually coordinate their release. It's almost certain that when the hostages were taken, they were dispersed. So I think that the principles involved with the exchange, that there will be a release of 150 Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails and 50 Israelis, it's been brokered in terms of the tempo and the duration and the conditions of the ceasefire have all been worked out. But I think probably what's happening now is Hamas is trying to be able to get control over the hostages that it is promised so that it can uphold its end of the deal.
Colonel Outzen, now, yesterday when this update came out, when the news broke, everybody was definitely taking a sigh of relief that finally we are seeing a ceasefire, some kind of a pause in the fighting. But this delay, which has already come in, it underscores the fluidity of the negotiations. Is nothing certain until we actually see the hostages released?
I think that's true in the tactical sense. I mean, in terms of who gets exchanged when and sort of the dynamics of the negotiation, that's always very fluid. The Middle East is that way. However, I think one thing that's not fluid is that this military operation will come to an end. And I think Israel is dealing with increasing headwinds internationally in terms of concern over the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and frankly about whether they can achieve their military goals. Because it's one thing to say we're going to destroy Hamas and to really damage its military capabilities in the northern Gaza Strip, which they've more or less done to this point. It's another to say we're going to wipe out Hamas altogether, which was the sort of maximalistic goal at the start of the campaign. As reality sets in, both in terms of international concern and in terms of the limitations of what Israel can do on the ground, this is the Hudna, or the short-term ceasefire, is ultimately going to come to a new status quo. This war will end. That's not in doubt. The question is, in the meantime, how many Israeli lives can they save, both through rescue and through negotiation?
Right, sir. Also, let's talk about the practical implications of a pause if and when it does come into effect. Now, of course, this will give both the sides time to regroup, rearm. On the other hand, Israel has made it clear that the war will continue. Its operations on ground will not stop until they've reached their objectives here. What's your take on that?
Well, I think the military campaign from the Israeli perspective has actually moved fairly quickly. They got to the center of Gaza City and Al-Shifa Hospital, these other things that they've identified as operational goals, without an unacceptable level of casualties on their end, and a little bit quicker. Now, they've said this will go on for months and months, but I think the bigger question at this point is not the military success of the campaign. They've actually inflicted a lot of damage on the Hamas's fighting capabilities. It's on what follows, right? Because they've already said their war will be a failure. It will be a victory for Hamas if Hamas survives it. And yet something has to replace Hamas. So the question for the United States, certainly, and this is something that American diplomats and statesmen are asking their Israeli counterparts, is what happens when you've destroyed enough tunnels, or when you've been there long enough to ensure no more rocket attacks and gotten most of your hostages back? Because ultimately the Israeli army can't stay there forever. And that's the real problem here, is there's not a political horizon for how this ends, which means we'll just have more rounds of fighting. So I've been impressed from a military technical standpoint with what the Israelis have done. Their progress has been good, but there's still this gaping hole in the political horizon for how we end this in Gaza and how we ensure that it's not repeated again in 2 or 3 years.
No political horizon in the works, at least. Thank you so much for joining in, Colonel Rich Outzen. Always a pleasure having you here, right here on World DNA.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Now, the war in West Asia continues to make headlines despite the two sides agreeing to a truce. Israeli officials say there will be no pause in the Gaza fighting or any release of hostages held by Hamas before Friday.
Well, it's definitely a change from what we read and heard yesterday. In the latest, the Israeli army has showed a reinforced tunnel beside Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. The tunnel was complete with a bathroom, a kitchen and an air-conditioned meeting room that it said had served as a command post for Hamas fighters.
Now, the Israeli army said the tunnel shaft, some 2 meters high, was accessed through a outdoor shaft in the hospital complex grounds. They further added that the area was once crowded with tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians. The Hamas militants used them as a human shield from the war.
Now we are in the tunnel just below the Qatari building that you saw outside.
There is rooms that helps the Hamasis to stay here, and they use the hospital as a human shield because they understood that we will not attack them. We assume that there is another way out that they prepared. It's not open yet.
Israel has long accused Hamas militants of using the Al-Shifa hospital complex as a command and control center as part of a wider strategy that seeks to hide its forces among the civilian population. And the Israeli military, which had been seeking to produce evidence for its claim, portrayed the underground hideout as its most significant discovery yet, although Hamas and hospital officials have denied the accusation.
The hospital site in Gaza, it's been at the center of accusations of war crimes on both sides, with Palestinians accusing Israel of targeting hospitals and Israel saying the sites were used to shelter armed fighters.
Moreover, Israel has said that its military will continue operations in Gaza after the hostages are released, as detailed by the ceasefire agreement made with Hamas militants.
Israel is at war with Hamas. This is a war that we did not start and we did not seek. An operational pause for release of hostages does not change it. Israel is still at war with Hamas, and we are committed achieving our goals: defeat Hamas and bring all our hostages home.
Moreover, during a visit to Khan Younis, the head of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees has said that a waterborne disease outbreak is imminent in the region. The organization is describing the situation for most as desperate. This as people lack all kinds of resources.
I have also been explained the important increase of skin disease, which is not surprising when we see the unsanitary condition people are living in. But now winter is coming. People are lacking everything. We have water in the street. And I have been warned that we are on the eve of a waterborne disease outbreak. And this needs absolutely to be prevented.
According to the UN's World Food Programme, dehydration and malnutrition are growing amongst the Gazans. The UN has also warned of growing risk of widespread starvation after internet and telephone services collapsed in the besieged enclave because of lack of fuel. All right, the temporary truce between the militant group and Israel has now been delayed.
Now, earlier, Israel's cabinet had approved a ceasefire deal with the Hamas group on Tuesday night. Several world leaders welcomed this deal, in fact. And French President Emmanuel Macron said that the authorities are working tirelessly for the release of all hostages.
Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi hailed the success of the mediation. New British Foreign Secretary also welcomed the agreement between the Israeli government and Hamas.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged leaders of the world's 20 big economies to do whatever was necessary to ensure the Israel-Hamas war does not expand into a wider conflict.
मानवीय सहायता का समय से और निरंतर पहुंचना आवश्यक है। ये सुनिश्चित करना भी जरूरी है कि इजरायल और हमास की लड़ाई किसी तरह का क्षेत्रीय रूप धारण न कर।
Turkish President Erdogan said that he hopes this truce deal will lead into permanent peace.
Elini vicdanına koyan herkesin kabul edeceği üzere bu yaşananların hiçbiri kendini savunma hakkıyla açıklanamaz. Burada açıkça savaş suçu ve insanlığa karşı suç işlenmektedir. Bunları yapanlar insanlığın vicdanıyla birlikte uluslararası hukuk önünde de muhakkak hesap vermelidir.
Now in Vatican, Pope Francis also addressed the conflict in his speech. Pope Francis said that the conflict has gone beyond war to become terrorism.
Ho sentito come soffrono ambedue. Le guerre fanno questo, ma qui siamo andati oltre le guerre. Questo non è guerra già, questo è terrorismo. Per favore andiamo avanti per la pace. Pregate per la pace. Pregate tanto per la pace. Che il Signore metta mano lì, che il Signore ci aiuti a risolvere i problemi e non andare avanti con le passioni che alla fine uccidono tutti. Preghiamo per il popolo palestinese, preghiamo per il popolo israeliano, perché venga la pace.
Under the deal, Hamas is to free 50 hostages over a 4-day period. The Israeli government said it would extend the lull by an additional day for every 10 hostages released, and Hamas welcomed Israel's move and dubbed it a humanitarian truce. In a statement, it said that 150 Palestinian prisoners will be released from Israeli jails as part of the agreement.
Meanwhile, as the leaders welcome the truce, the conflict between Israel and Gaza escalates. The Israeli air and ground operations continue.
After an airstrike targeted a residential compound in Khan Yunis, people carried wounded children and relatives to nearby hospitals. The chief of United Nations Children's Agency described Gaza as the most dangerous place in the world to be a child.
Maximum graveyards are full in Gaza. Gazans are burying their loved ones in mass graves. Some of the bodies still remain unidentified. Of course, we'll bring you all the developments on that front. Moving on to other stories now. A car explosion at the US-Canada border on Thanksgiving Eve. It's triggered a massive security scare in both the countries.
Well, the crash took place on a bridge that links US and Canada. It killed the car's driver and passenger. A border patrol officer has also been injured in the process. Now, the incident prompted the closure of 4 US-Canadian border crossings as well as Buffalo International Airport in US.
Now, the car crash, it's been caught on security camera. The visuals on your screens show how it unfolded. You can see the car traveling at a very high speed. It then hits an object and then is flung into the air before crashing to the ground and exploding in flames.
Now, these are some eyewitness footage accounts that have captured the fiery crash. The 2 deceased in the incident have not been identified yet, but some US media reports mentioned that the driver was a 56-year-old man who was on his way to a rock concert with his wife.
The bridge where the crash took place, it's called the Rainbow Bridge. It's a major border crossing. The bridge connects the cities of Niagara Falls in New York and Niagara Falls in Ontario, Canada. US federal and state authorities have ruled out a link to terrorism in the incident. However, its cause, it's yet to be determined.
At this time, there is no indication of a terrorist attack. Let me repeat that. At this time, there is no indication of a terrorist-involved attack here at the Rainbow Bridge in Western New York. At 11:27 this morning, a car going at a very high rate of speed crashed into a median at Niagara Street just minutes from here. It's in the city of Niagara Falls, near one of the border crossings into Canada, the Rainbow Bridge.
Meanwhile, authorities on both sides of the border have activated emergency responses. The access roads to the crossing are flooded with emergency service workers and vehicles. US President Joe Biden has been briefed and he is closely following all the developments. While Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told Parliament that the situation is very serious.
Mr. Speaker, this is obviously a very serious situation in Niagara Falls. There was a vehicle explosion at the Rainbow Bridge crossing. I've been briefed by the NSIA and the Minister of Public Safety. CBSA, RCMP, and Transport Canada are all fully engaged in providing the necessary support. There are a lot of questions, and we are following up to try and get as many answers as rapidly as possible.
Now, the timing of this incident, it sparked major concerns. The ongoing war in West Asia is being feared of sparking terror attacks worldwide. Separately, US holiday traffic also peaks during Thanksgiving.
All the 3 other border crossings that were shut after the incident have now been reopened, along with the Buffalo International Airport. However, the Rainbow Bridge crossing remains closed.
Now, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani explains to us what the exact details of this incident are. Listen in.
The White House has been briefed on the situation, as has the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who announced that 4 points of entry from Canada to the United States have now been closed. The Buffalo Airport is also closed to all international flights. You can imagine how that affects other airports around the country on one of the most busiest travel days in the United States, Thanksgiving Eve. Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, just said a few hours ago that state troopers as well as the NYPD are assisting the FBI, which is investigating this deadly incident which killed 2 people.
Susan also spoke about and shared her views on the security measures and concerns in New York, notably in New York City, especially on Thanksgiving Day.
Well, we still don't know what caused that explosion at the U.S.-Canada border. It does come on the eve of the annual Thanksgiving parade here in New York City. And while officials had earlier said that there were no credible threats to the parade, the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI and other agencies said that the Israeli-Hamas war, quote, has created a heightened threat environment that makes the parade a quote unquote attractive target. Now, the assessment also noted that Al-Qaeda has called on its followers to attack American, British, and French national, as well as the Jewish people everywhere, using public events as their backdrop. New York Governor Kathy Hochul earlier in the week said that New York City is on the state of heightened alert, not only because of the Thanksgiving Day parade, but also because it is the holiday season. She also said it would be very naive to think that what's happening overseas wouldn't bleed into states here, notably New York City. She said that we had been targeted before, however, we are very prepared. Officials are calling for growing concern and vigilance regarding lone wolf actors that may use unsophisticated means to cause havoc, wreak havoc. And those unsophisticated means, they say, are actually more difficult to detect.
And with that, we now slip into a short break.
Don't go anywhere. Of course, World DNA will be back right after this short break. On the other side, an undetermined pneumonia outbreak in China is hitting children hard, and now children's hospitals are overwhelmed in multiple locations.
Also on the other side, artificial intelligence may soon allow millions of workers to move to a 4-day week by 2033. We will tell you all about this on the other side as well. Do stay tuned.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear it in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation here across Israel. It's a state of emergency.
The United States stands with Israel.
Well, we are starting this broadcast with a developing story from West Asia, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas has launched a war against the state of Israel.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
New drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police...
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us on the show so far. We've gotten you all the updates from the Israel-Hamas war front. From what we do know so far, the deal that was scheduled for Thursday, it's now been moved till Friday. There will be no hostage swap until Friday. And there will be no pause in fighting either until hostages are released. That's the word that we're getting right now as per reports from that front.
And while we have tracked all that has happened in the Israel-Hamas front, there was another big news which has made it all over the world now. There has been an explosion on a bridge linking US and Canada, and reactions have come in from the Canadian leadership and US leadership as well. Of course, we're tracking all the developments coming in from that front. For now, let's get you started with all that is happening around the world. Let's get you started with the headlines. This is World DNA.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's national security advisor says planned hostage for swap prisoner deal with Hamas delayed until Friday.
Israeli army says no ceasefire till hostage swap begins. IDF releases footage showing capture of North Gaza Hamas brigade headquarters and purported tunnel shafts under Al-Shifa hospital.
Uttarakhand tunnel rescue operations hit momentary snag after NDRF personnel find steel rods in debris. Rescue in crucial final stage as per the project director.
A vehicle explodes at the US-Canada checkpoint on Niagara Falls Rainbow Bridge, reportedly killing 2 people. US Border Protection Agency video footage shows cars speeding and taking off into the air prior to the explosion.
Last year's runners-up Australia powered into the semi-finals of the Davis Cup after recovering from a 1-0 down to beat Czech Republic. They will face Finland for a place in Sunday's final. Well, the 12 meters of rock and debris separate the 41 workers that are trapped in a collapsed tunnel in India's Uttarakhand.
They are expected to be rescued today, and this is a developing story which we are tracking very closely for you. If everything goes well, the 12-day long wait for the workers may come to an end today, thanks to the coordinated and relentless efforts by the rescuers.
$44 मीटर तक पाइप जा चुका है, 12 मीटर और जाना है।
सर, क्या कुछ दिक्कत आ रही है यहाँ पर? ऑब्स्टेकल भी बताया?
सिर्फ एक ही दिक्कत मैं सभी को बार बार बता चुका हूँ कि भाई वहाँ पे कुछ स्टील के टुकड़े आगे हैं टनल में, मलबे में, जो स्टील का ही, जो टनल का ही पार्ट थे, वो मलबे में पड़े हैं। उनको वहाँ तक पहुँच गए, फिर उसे वापस आए, अब उनको काटा जा रहा है।
कब से सर ये दिक्कत आ रही है? क्योंकि आज शाम को
मेरे ख्याल से 11-12 बजे के करीब ये थोड़ा मशीन ने इंडिकेशन दी कि आगे कोई ऑब्स्ट्रक्शन है,
उसके बाद से लगातार काटा जा रहा है।
या।
सर टोटल कब तक काट लिया जाएगा इसको और पूरा कंप्लीट?
देखिए, मुझे पूरी उम्मीद है कि भी 1 घंटे में कट जाना चाहिए। उसके बाद 5 घंटे में 2 पाइप पुश हो जाने चाहिए। सवेरे 8 बजे तक ऑपरेशन शुड बी ओवर।
A 15-member team of NDRF personnel has been tasked to carry out the last stage of the evacuation process. They will take the men one by one through the wide pipes, which they will finish inserting shortly.
Meanwhile, an ambulance is deployed inside the tunnel and a team of doctors is also put on standby for health checkups of the workers. Some family members are present at the rescue site to raise the spirits of those trapped for days. The Jharkhand government earlier announced that it will airlift workers belonging to the state who were among the 41 workers as well. And these are the live visuals of the operations that are underway currently. As you can see, these are the rods that are being inserted. These are the live visuals that we're getting at the moment of the operations which are underway.
The rescue operation, of course, has been on for several days now and it is nearing completion. Hopes are high that today, within the next few hours, everyone will be rescued from inside. Earlier, officials at the site said that the American-made auger or the earth drilling machine was working well and fast.
Now, a multi-pronged rescue effort is in place since day one. Experts from Australia, Norway, Thailand are working along with 5 public sector companies in India to rescue the workers. These are the live visuals that we're getting at the moment from Uttarakhand, India. This is where the rescue operations have been ongoing for the past several days. It's 12 meters of rock at the moment and debris that separate the 41 workers trapped in a collapsed tunnel in India's Uttarakhand. They're expected to be rescued today. The next few hours are going to be crucial. Of course, this is a developing story. We're tracking this very closely for you. These are the live visuals that we're seeing at the moment. This is a makeshift temple that's been made at the site where the tunnel has collapsed. This is where the operations are on. Hopes are high. Now, if everything goes well, the 12-day-long wait for the workers may come to an end today, or hopes are high. There are families that are waiting right outside this collapsed tunnel site to raise the spirits of the people who are working relentlessly to rescue the workers. As I mentioned earlier, at this moment, it's 12 meters of rock and debris that separate the 41 workers from the rescue workers outside and the families which are waiting outside.
We'll keep you updated on all that is happening in the Uttarakhand tunnel rescue, which hopefully should be completed very soon. India, in other news, has responded to reports that there were plans to kill Khalistani terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannu.
New Delhi has confirmed that Washington did share some inputs about a nexus between organized criminals, gun runners, terrorists and others. Officials expressed that these inputs are a cause of concern for both the countries and warrant a necessary follow-up. India has designated Pannu as a terrorist.
Now, New Delhi further added that such inputs are already being examined by relevant departments. It also added that India takes such inputs very seriously, as it could impinge on its own security interests as well.
Financial Times had earlier reported that some US authorities had expressed concerns to the Indian government about an alleged plot to kill Khalistani terrorists on American soil.
Reports say that US authorities earlier thwarted an assassination attempt against Pannu on its soil. And Pannu is a listed terrorist in India and recently threatened Air India flights as well.
Moving on now, an undetermined pneumonia outbreak in China is hitting children hard, and children's hospitals are overwhelmed in multiple locations.
Now, reports of a spike in pneumonia cases in China are similar to early reports of a mystery pneumonia outbreak in 2019 in Wuhan, which heralded the emergence of COVID-19.
Now, the reports reference one pediatric hospitals in multiple locations, including Beijing and Liaoning, which is around 800 kilometers away. Reports also say the pneumonia outbreaks have led to school cancellations and some illnesses in teachers. Some observers speculate the outbreak could be caused by Mycoplasma pneumonia. Commonly known as walking pneumonia, Mycoplasma pneumonia mostly causes a chest cold. Symptoms include sore throat, fatigue, and slowly worsening cough that can last for weeks or months.
The prolonged illness and the risk of pneumonia is what's alarming parents here. At a November 13th press conference, Chinese authorities attributed an increase in respiratory illnesses to the lifting of restrictions on COVID-19. They also cited circulation of known pathogens, including influenza and common bacterial infections known to affect children in particular. On the 21st of November, Media and Public Disease Surveillance System, ProMed, reported clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia in children in northern China.
The WHO said it was unclear if these reports were related to the infections discussed at the authorities' press meeting and that it was seeking clarification on the same. In the meantime, it urged people to take preventative measures such as vaccination, keeping distance from the sick, staying at home when ill, regular hand washing and wearing masks as appropriate.
All right, here's some good news from the world of tech next. Artificial intelligence may soon allow millions of workers to move to a 4-day week by 2033.
Now, that would be ideal, and according to a report by Autonomy, an independent research organization, around 28% of Britain's workforce might have to work only 32 hours a week full-time by 2033. Not just that, the research also found that around 28 million workers, which is approximately 88% of Great Britain's workforce, could have their working hours reduced by at least 10%. The study suggests London alone could see 89% of its labour witness a 10% decrease in working hours.
Autonomy also conducted a similar study in the US. As per the report, around 35 million working people in the US could move to a 4-day week inside the same time frame. Moreover, around 128 million workers, or 71% of the US workforce, could have their working hours reduced by at least 10%.
The question is, how can this be achieved? The company claims this could be achieved by bringing large language models such as ChatGPT into workplaces to augment workers' roles and create more free time. Experts believe that the 4-day week policy could help lower the unemployment rate and reduce widespread mental and physical illnesses. And amid the ongoing buzz surrounding OpenAI ChatGPT, it's now released a popular accessibility-focused feature as well.
ChatGPT can now see, hear and speak. The ChatGPT voice feature, which was once exclusive to paid users, is now available for everyone. OpenAI announced on X saying that ChatGPT with voice is now accessible to all free users. Simply download the app on your phone, and with a tap on the headphones icon, you can dive into a voice conversation. The ChatGPT voice feature allows the chatbot to interact with users in 5 distinct voices, and users can set the voices according to personal preferences.
Now, this innovation involves collaboration with professional voice actors and utilizes OpenAI's proprietary speech recognition system. It's called Whisper. The speech recognition system converts spoken words into text. Users can engage in verbal exchange with ChatGPT by tapping the headset icon on the mobile app. This means one can initiate voice conversations and receive human-like responses.
To access this feature, simply tap the headphone icon on the chat screen's bottom right corner. Choose your preferred voice from the 5 available options to serve as your voice assistant. And now start your conversation with the chatbot by providing a voice prompt or initiating a chat. All right, as Thanksgiving nears, the economic landscape in the United States presents a nuanced picture here.
And that's a respite from inflation accompanies a cost dip in Thanksgiving meals, yet families face enduring financial strains, with record travel numbers expected, driven by affordable gas prices and decreased flight costs. Americans prepare for a holiday journey amidst a dynamic economic backdrop. Take a look at our next report for more on this.
The economy is sending mixed signals as Americans prepare for Thanksgiving 2023. A little escape from inflation, but a constant strain on family finances. A 10-person Thanksgiving dinner now costs $61.17, which is 4.5% less than it did the year before. The price of turkey fell 5.6% from the previous year, which is the primary cause of this decline. Even with this decrease, the cost of meals overall is still 25% more than it was in 2019. According to reports, 4.7 million people are expected to take to the skies, a 6.6% increase from last year, marking the highest Thanksgiving air travel in nearly 2 decades. Meanwhile, a whopping 49.1 million Americans are set to hit the roads, a 1.7% rise from 2022. Affordable gas prices are playing a significant role, inspiring more road trips. The average gas price, currently at $3.27 per gallon, has fallen 25.9 cents from last month and 36.9 cents from last year. There has been a 9% drop in average flight prices from last year. In fact, travel search engines like Kayak report an even more substantial dip of about 18% around the Thanksgiving period. The Transportation Security Administration expects to screen 2.9 million passengers on 26th November, making it one of the busiest days since June. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey expects over 8.5 million travelers during the peak period. As Americans embark on this Thanksgiving journey, they are also preparing for the unexpected while embracing the spirit of the season. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, the crypto industry, it's been plagued by bad headlines almost every other day for over a year now.
This is the reason why the world and global regulators are eyeing the digital industry with distrust now. After FTX, Sam Bankman-Friedman, Binance founder Changpeng Zhao is the latest high-profile name charged by regulators as well.
Now, Richard Teng, the new head of cryptocurrency exchange Binance, has a lot on his plate. He has to claim 150 million users who may be on the verge of losing their composure and appease aggressive US authorities. Teng also has to maintain the support of Binance creator Zhao and his partner Yi He, who is the co-founder, following the company, and Zhao's guilty pleas to US anti-money laundering and sanctions offences. Binance's founder and CEO resigned.
Binance will pay $4.3 billion, or one of the biggest fines in US history. Zhao will pay a punishment of $50 million. A plea agreement reduced his sentence from 10 years to 18 months, but he still faces as much time behind bars. According to Defilama data, the Binance platform had a net withdrawal of $1.3 billion from clients in the last 24 hours. But that's less than the $4 billion per day that was withdrawn at times of crisis in the past, and only a fraction of Binance exchange assets valued at $67 billion. Now, in 2017, Binance became the talk of the crypto world. Following FTX demise in November 2022, its market share skyrocketed to over 60% globally. However, researcher CC Data reports that since then, its total market share has dropped to below 45%, despite the euphoria surrounding expectations for exchange trade funds for Bitcoin. Now, there are more naysayers now than before. All right, over to sports next. It has been just 4 days since Australia beat India in the ODI World Cup final, and we will see the two teams face off again, this time in a 5-match T20I series, which begins today in Visakhapatnam.
Now, Australia showed their big game credentials once again with a 6-wicket victory over favourites India and Ahmedabad to be crowned ODI world champions for a record-extending 6th time. Travis Head scored a magnificent 137 in the final to be named player of the match, and he is part of the Australian squad for the series.
In fact, he is one of 7 players who have been retained from the World Cup winning squad. Glenn Maxwell, Steve Smith, Josh Inglis, Marcus Stoinis, Sean Abbott and Adam Zampa have also stayed back in India. David Warner was also part of the initial squad, but he made a late decision to withdraw.
Meanwhile, India have rested almost all of their World Cup squad. Surya Kumar Yadav will lead the side, while Ishan Kishan and Prasidh Krishna are the other players who were part of the World Cup squad. Shreyas Iyer will return for the final 2 matches of the series.
I feel keeping that T20 World Cup in mind, the games which we are going to play till then are very important. And as I said, my message to them is very clear. Just be fearless and do whatever it takes to help the team. And they've been doing that in the IPL. They've played a lot of domestic cricket as well recently. So they're in good nick, which I heard from our support staff. And I've told them only one thing, just enjoy your time in the middle, do the same thing, don't do anything different. At the end of the day, just a game of cricket.
Now, this will be the 4th bilateral series between the two sides across formats this year. Focus now shifts from ODIs to the 20-over format, with the T20 World Cup in USA and West Indies just 7 months away.
Round the wicket, the ball isn't turning. Oh, that's been slapped hard.
Over to tennis now. Last year's runner-up Australia came from behind to defeat 3-time champions Czech Republic and reach the semi-finals of the Davis Cup.
The Czechs were eyeing their first win against Australia since 1975. Thomas Mahach got the Czech Republic off to the perfect start after securing a win over Jordan Thompson. The Czech number 2 broke in the first game of the match, and that proved decisive as he wrapped up the opener. Thompson fought back in the second set though, and Thompson traded breaks with his opponent before the Czech edged ahead to win the match 6-4, 7-5.
World number 12, Alex de Minaur took on Izzy Leka in the second singles match. Australian opener quarter-finalist broke for a 3-2 lead in the first set and saved 5 break points to win it. The Czech broke the 22-year-old early in second set as well. He was serving for victory at 5-4, but de Minaur changed things around and won the set. De Minaur continued his form in this deciding set, and he broke Leka's serve at 5-5 before closing out the match with 4 straight points. The Australian won with a scoreline of 4-6, 7-6, 7-5 in 2 hours and 32 minutes.
The win set the stage for a decisive doubles rubber that pit Aussies Matthew Ebden and Max Purcell against Adam Pavlasek and Leheka. It took Wimbledon 2022 doubles champions Ebden and Purcell 1 hour and 12 minutes to defeat their opponents in straight sets. The Australian duo only dropped 2 points on their serves in the first set and broke their opponents in the 7th game to take it. They broke the Czech pairing again in the second set to win the match 6-4, 7-5 and send Australia through to the semi-finals. Australia will face Finland for a place in the final now, and Finland had ended the reign of holders Canada on Wednesday.
On to news now from the world of showbiz. Let's take a look at the top stories from the world of entertainment.
Britain's King Charles presented K-pop band Blackpink with an honorary member of the Order of the British Empire in the presence of South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol during his official state visit to the United Kingdom. The group's members, Jennie, Jisoo, Lisa and Rosé, received their honorary MBEs in recognition of the band's role as COP26 advocates for the COP26 summit in Glasgow in 2021. Blackpink made history in July when it became the first K-pop group to headline a major UK music festival after taking the stage at the BST Hyde Park Summer Festival. Actor Jenna Ortega has dropped out of the Scream 7. Her exit comes a day after production house Spyglass fired actor Melissa Barrera from the project for taking a pro-Palestinian stance on her social media handles amid the Israel-Hamas war. Barrera and Ortega have played sisters in the franchise since 2022's Scream. Losing both the main leads one after the other has put the future of the franchise in question. However, sources say that Ortega's departure has nothing to do with Barrera's firing. Her decision to leave the upcoming Scream film was made prior to the actors' strike. Actors Timothée Chalamet and Hugh Grant walked the red carpet at the Tokyo premiere of their new movie musical Wonka. The film is a prequel to the 1971 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory film starring Gene Wilder. The story will explain why Willy Wonka became obsessed with the chocolate and evolved into such a beguiling character. Wonka also stars Olivia Colman, Keegan-Michael Key, and Hugh Grant as an Oompa Loompa, the smallest role he's ever played.
All right, celebrating Walt Disney Company's 100th anniversary, a new animated musical is set to release tomorrow. More details in our next report. Check it out.
2, 1. Asha! I'm here. Whew, just 1 second. Let me catch my breath.
Reflecting on Disney's modest beginnings, Wish draws from the song When You Wish Upon a Star from the 1940 cartoon film Pinocchio. The animated movie that releases on November 24th highlights the power and importance of wishing and reaffirms that it is the key to storytelling, magic and possibility of the iconic studio. In the movie, 17-year-old Asha makes a passionate plea to the stars after she senses darkness in the kingdom of Rosas. After sensing King Magnifico's evil intentions, a magical star responds and helps Asha challenge the powerful ruler. Chris Pine, who has voiced Magnifico, has faith in the film's idea and magic.
I think it's a really beautiful way and an elegant way of celebrating the 100-year anniversary by making a film that's all about probably the most iconographic part of the Disney brand.
Meanwhile, Ariana DeBose, who lent vocals to Asha, shares how she was allowed to grow as a vocalist throughout the filming.
The common thing that they have is that Asha is always singing them, but there's a style or an energy that is inherently different in all of these songs, and it's indicative of the journey that she's going on. So I think I was allowed to grow as a vocalist, and the character was also allowed to grow on the journey the entire way through. And I think, you know, for me, Ariana, I came out a better vocalist than I was when I started. So that's good.
Helmed by Chris Buck and Fawn Veerasantan, the Disney movie is sure to leave fans believing in the magic and the power of wishing. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And with that, we call a wrap on this edition of World DNA.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep watching WION World is One for all your global updates. Come right back after the break.